Today, I'm going to tell you a story that will shock you, haunt you, and stay with you. The story of a woman whose body was dissected for science, displayed like a museum object. She died and only found peace 200 years later. This is the story of Sarah Baartman.
Hi Cheesy, how's your energy? Let's talk.
My energy is so low right now, and that is because I'm about to tell a story that I never ever knew could ever happen. This story I'm about to tell is such sad historical one that is super super humiliating. But you know what? Let's talk it out. Before Kim Kardashian, before social media baddies, before BBL, that's the Brazilian butt lift, before body positivity was even a thing, there was Sarah Baartman, a young woman from South Africa whose body was turned into a public spectacle. She didn't ask to be famous, but she became a symbol, not a symbol of admiration, but of cruel exploitation. Sarah Baartman, also known as Satije Baartman, was born around 1789 in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. She belonged to the Kwekwe people, an indigenous group known for their unique physical features, especially steatopegia, a genetic condition that causes large buttocks and hips. At that time, South Africa was under Dutch colonial rule, and like many Africans, Sarah's life was shaped by colonization, racism, and slavery. Her parents were reportedly killed by Dutch colonizers, and her herself was later enslaved by a Dutch farmer called Pieter Cesars. Sarah was no different from many young African girls, including me. She was full of dreams. This girl never imagined that they won't remember her for her voice, for her dance. As South Africans, or the South Africans, they love to dance. I'm a piano. Almost all of them can dance. She never imagined they won't remember her for her culture, for her talent, singing or something. But her body, that is what she's remembered for, her body. As a growing girl, 21. At 21, I mean, you're chasing dreams, exploring your talents, trying to bring yourself, build yourself, whatever talent it is you have, dancing, singing. She was definitely thinking she'll be remembered for something like that, not her body. Anyways, welcome back to Cheesy's Energy Uncovered. I studied sociology and I have decided to uncover stories. Now, if you have gotten to this point in the video, you are definitely family. Please hit the like button, kindly subscribe, and don't forget to leave your comments down the comment section. Now, let's get right into the story. Now, in 1810, when Sarah was just 21 years old, a British doctor by the name William Dunlop convinced her to travel to London, with him. He claimed that she's going to become a superstar, to earn money, she's going to have a better life by showcasing her African features. What she did not know was that she was being taken to perform, not as a singer, not as a dancer, not as an actor, but as a human freak show. In London, she was literally exhibited as the Hottentots Venus in public shows at 21. I'm trying to imagine my life at 21 as a young African girl. Like, it's more like trafficking, right? Convinced her to go to London only for her to be thinking, oh, she's going to be a star. She's going to probably sing, dance. She never knew that she was going to go and turn into a human freak show where people come and use her as an exhibition. Hotentus Venus, that's what they called her, in public shows. Crazy. Crowds gathered. They paid to literally stare at her semi-nude body, to laugh at her curves, and even poke her with sticks. She was being treated like an animal. Because I don't know if you know, but she was very curvy, very extremely curvy. Her body was, very big. She was hot. The BBL bodies you see today, that's the Sarah Baartman of those days. And she was put there. People paid to watch her. She was semi-naked. These people did not see Sarah Baartman as a woman or even a human being. Instead, they saw her as something between a wild animal and a science experiment. This story just reminded me of King Kong. Many of us have probably seen King Kong. King Kong, I remember when they caught him finally. That's the big gorilla or whatever. When they finally caught him and they put him up as a freak show. They put him up in a public show that was going on. They chained his hands and put him in like a box, and people paid to come watch the show, to laugh at him, to stone him, to poke him, that was what happened to King Kong when he was caught. But now we're talking about a human being, an African black woman. not an animal. We're talking about a human being that has a heart, that has feelings, that has emotions, that had dreams. A young, very young girl. Imagine her in King Kong's position. She's just placed there and people are laughing at her. People are poking her with sticks. People are just there paying to stare at her semi nude body. Like, this is one crazy story I have ever heard. And remember, this was during the height of European colonialism when, Africans were stereotyped as exotic, primitive, and hypersexual. The name Hottentot Venus alone is degrading, it's embarrassing, is wicked to call a human being. Hottentot was a racist slur used by the Europeans to mock the Kwekwe people's language. Like there's a particular way they speak. And they just use Hottentot. Like that was like their word they used to mock how they speak. And then Venus, that was pure mockery. Comparing her to Roman goddess of beauty while in the same breath embarrassing, humiliating her. Sarah was displayed in circuses, private parties, even science halls. Like, this is not a lab rat. This is your fellow human being. Sometimes when I think about white people, I don't know, there's a lot they owe Africans. There's a lot they did that is just so inhuman. They were so heartless. Why? People will literally crowd at her backside, calling her unnatural, animalistic, subhuman. Hell. And it wasn't just for entertainment. It got to the point where European scientists began using her to support racist ideologies about, black people being biologically inferior. It was disgusting. Her life was being stolen day by day. Her body was sold, her humanity stripped, all in the name of curiosity and science, all in the name of I want to know more. Let's figure her out. She's just a project. She's just a lab rat. In short, they could have even opened her up. Like at some point, the cruelty became too loud to ignore. British abolitionists stepped in, arguing that Sarah was being exploited and should be freed. A court case was even filed in 1810 because of this. But during the trial, Sarah Baartman, she reportedly claimed that she agreed to doing this. She agreed to the exhibition of her body. She was paid and she was okay with it. But now people have started to think about it and know that she said those things. She wrote those statements or made those statements under pressure. She was probably threatened, how they would, seriously make you do what you are not supposed to do. People now believe she was probably coached and threatened to say those things, to write those things. Because how is it possible that she just agreed to come and be a freak show, to come and just let her body be humiliated, be exploited in the general public? That is not even possible. This girl was probably trying to protect the only thing she had, which was her survival. At 21, you're so young, you don't know much. And when you are threatened, all you have is your life you just want to keep yourself alive. So that was it. That was it for Sarah Baartman. All she had at that time was her survival, and that's what she was protecting. In the end, the court ruled that she had given consent, ignoring her power imbalance, ignoring her trauma, ignoring the racial dynamics of the situation. Once again, the system failed her. After the court case, Sarah was moved to Paris, but this was not a fresh start. It was a deeper hell. It was the deepest hell because now in France, she was no longer displayed just in carnivals anymore. She was not just a freak show anymore. She now became the subject of medical study. Famous scientists like Georges Cuvier examined her, measured her, drew her, wrote about her. They literally described her features as proof that Africans were closer to apes than humans. Can you hear this? They literally described her as someone who is going to prove to the Africans. They used her features to say this is proof to Africans, to the black people, that they are closer to apes than humans. That we are more of apes than human beings. Being the subject of that, being the material used to prove that, is wild as hell. She was stripped naked, paraded around salons for the French elite, and treated like an exotic object, while her body was reduced to a scientific curiosity. You see the way people will be making their hair in their salons in France? These are rich women, those big salons that probably have like show glasses as their door. And then they'll be parading her in front of these show glasses, in front of these salons for the French elite. That's the French rich, wealthy people, to be seeing her. Now, moving on, this lady died in 1815 at the age of 26. So this whole trauma, this whole horrible experience started when she was 21 in 1810 and she died in 1815. This girl did not have the opportunity to go back to living a normal life. She died in her exploitation, in that humiliation. She died as a science object, like an animal. And even when she died, this lady was not allowed to rest. This lady died poor, alone, sick, probably died of pneumonia or syphilis or something. But even in her death, these people still did not let her rest. Cuvier, that's the famous scientist, Georges Cuvier, he dissected her body, preserved her skeletons, and kept her genitals and brain in jars, like in bottles. You know, when you dissect somebody's body, you preserve the skeleton, then you take her genitals and her brain and put it in like a jar. What right? I'm so sorry, but what right did this man have to do this? What right did any of the people who humiliated this woman have to do this? Sarah's full body cast was put on display at the Musée de l'Homme in Paris. And for over 150 years, people came to stare at her as if she was a specimen. Like, it's so crazy how I'm sure fellow women, fellow girls came to stare at her as if she was just one historical object that they used to test humanity, or African speciality. Ah, Jesus Christ. She was put on display at the Musée de l'Homme in Paris. She was there, and for over 150 years, this was her real self being there, because her skeleton, like I said, Georges Cuvier, he preserved her skeleton. He saved her brain in jars and her genitals. So she was there. That was her. She wasn't buried. Now, I even wonder what her family, like, didn't they know what happened to her family? Sometimes I think about it. Why didn't the family come for her? Like, why didn't they find their way to London to relieve her of such wickedness happening to her, to help her? I don't know what really happened, but I tried to figure out what happened. Like, where is her family? Now, this wasn't just science. It was colonial violence, racism, sexism, embalmed and put on display. It wasn't until the 20th century, this is almost 200 years later, that there was now much more pressure, especially from South Africa. Activists and everybody began to, speak that her body be returned back home. How many years now? From 18th, it was in the 20th century, Sarah Baartman was returned back to South Africa, where she was laid to rest. In 1994, newly elected President Nelson Mandela officially requested the French government to return Sarah's remains, but it took 8 years extra of debates and bureaucracy before her body was returned home. From 1994, it took 8 more years till 2002, we just passed, yeah. From 1994, Nelson Mandela requested. 2002 was when her body was really returned home, where she was now laid to rest in Eastern Cape. That's her house, where she's from, her hometown, basically. It took her 200 years. Somebody convinced you to travel to London. You go with them and stay for 200 years. You stayed there from 21 to 26. You stayed there for 6 years. You let me say approximately you stayed there for 5 years, because you died at 26. 5 years plus an extra 200 years before you were able to go back home. Hi. Sarah Baartman's story is not just about the past. It's about how Black bodies, especially, women bodies, have been objectified, fetishized, and dehumanized for centuries. Her name is now a symbol in debates about racism, colonialism, the hypersexualization of Black women, and even modern day beauty standards. Some say the same world that mocked Sarah now praises it. I mean, we see it now in pop cultures. Everybody is going to do BBL, going to do enlargement of breast, going to do reduction of something, going to do enlargement of something they rejected, something that felt so inhuman to them. Now, the same white people begin, they do BBL. The same thing you looked at and it felt, white people, they are slim, they are tiny, and, they have this flat ass. Most of them are just flat and, on the petite side. So that Sarah Baartman looked like Chineke. It felt like, how is this a human being? Isn't this really a gorilla, a buffalo? Now, it's the same them that we say in pop culture, trying to have big bum bum and big hips. The same thing they hated, the same thing they cursed, Now they praise. But the difference is this, and the difference is very clear. For Sarah's own, she didn't want it, she didn't post it, she didn't profit from it. She was taken, displayed, and erased. So when next you scroll past a viral body trend, or when next you see people who are praising something they once persecuted, just remember Sarah Baartman, not just as a victim, but as a reminder of how cruel the world was and how cruel it sometimes still is, and the fact that we will never forget. Rest in power, Sarah Baartman. You were never just your body. I'm sure there are other people like me also who never knew this story and just found out about it. Please share it because I want people to know, Africans, the white people, everybody needs to know that something like this ever happened in history. This is Cheesy's Energy Uncovered, and we just uncovered another story they tried to hide. Please don't forget to leave a comment. If you already know the story, we could talk more about it in the comment section. Your opinions are super, super valid. And don't forget to like. And if you have not subscribed to Cheesy's Energy Uncovered, kindly do so. See you on the next one. Thank you all so much for watching. Love you. Bye.